I am not teaching, I am publicly learning. But hi and welcome to Learning for the Life in UK test part 508 while doing standing leg gymnastics. And if you participate in the standing leg gymnastics, that's set your own risk. Okay, we try to do now a video about Richard Austin Butler. Oftentimes or sometimes also referred just with R.A. Butler, Conservative Member of Parliament, 1923, and responsible for education 1941, and as the Minister for Education he made the Butler Act, and this Education Act of 1944 introduced the secondary education in England and Wales. I have a second camera running, and on that I try to say now what we've learned about Richard Austin Butler. Richard Austin Butler, or also referred to just with R.A. Butler. He was a Conservative Member of Parliament from 1923 onwards, and in 1941 he became the Minister for Education. And then he did the Butler Act, or the Education Act of 1944. And this Education Act of 1944 introduced the free secondary education in England and Wales. And that is according to the Life in the UK Test Handbook, page 54. Let's make it fast. Was it free? Which introduced free secondary education in England and Wales. Okay, I'm going to stop the camera. And we will start with standing leg gymnastics. We're doing the moderate. I have the feet standing together and lean a bit in front onto the balls of the feet and then lean back onto the heels. And take a bit of care. These exercises can cause motion sickness. Okay, the next video shall be about Dylan Thomas. He was a poet and writer, a Welsh poet and writer. He often read and performed his work in public. So he was a Welsh poet and writer, and he oftentimes performed his own work in public, for example, for the BBC. Two of his best known works are the radio play. It is a radio play. I try to understand the sense, not just to say it, to understand it. So the radio play Under Milkwood, and the poem Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. And the next exercise, waving one leg in front and we're rolling in front, by lifting the heel up of a stand of the back leg, and we're going back, lifting the toes up of the front leg. Do Not Go Gentle Into, and also his poem. So his radio play Under Milkwood is one of his most famous works, and also Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night, which he wrote for his dying father, 52. And we're changing the legs. In Swansea, that is in Wales. I don't want to say it wrong, so I'm going to. Here we have at 1951, 50 million population. Swansea is in Wales, at the sea. Closer to the sea than Cardiff or Southampton. Newport. Next exercise, the legs of the outside. We're going from one side to the other one. So in Swansea and Wales, there's several memorials for him. For example, which is his birthplace, a statue of the Dylan Thomas Centre. So we're talking about Dylan Thomas. I wasn't thinking of it, but we were planning the video. So Dylan Thomas. He was a Welsh poet and writer. Okay, I think don't go to let go time. We could do the video. No, we're still doing these exercises here. So let's start to prepare the next video. After that, it will be the establishing of a welfare state in post-war Britain or in 1945. But we would also mention in 1944 the Butler Act. Then we'll just be establishing of a welfare state in Britain. Is the working title for the video. Next exercise, waving one leg in front, and we're going in front onto the front leg, and again back. do we add something about the first working rights? Like 1872 was it? Where the woman and children can work maximum 10 hours per day. 1847. It was one of the first things. I don't know if, I think it was the first thing. So 1847, women and children 10 hours. And the next thing mentioned was, we're changing the name. Nothing. Yes, maybe here. And at the beginning of the 20th century, there was financial help for the unemployed, old age pension, free school meals, and free school meals. Also, several further laws, a part of the 10 hours day, to improve the safety of the workplace. Town ruling plans was tightened to prevent the developments of slums. Better support for mothers and children. Okay, that was before the First World War already. Next exercise, feet are standing together, the old fence post. And we're going in front, very much in front, and just get back. There's already quite a lot. 1920s living conditions, but that is not part of that yet. There was then nothing written to it. And when the welfare state, the country was economically exhausted, people wanted change. Already during the Conservative government, 1944 was the Education Act done by Richard Austin Butler, introducing free secondary education. But when the Labour government was introduced and that put into action, implemented many of Beveridge's plan and implemented many of the ideas suggested by the Beveridge report done by William Beveridge, who said that in his report that, and probably said more concrete things than just these things. Here, many of Beveridge's plan, it doesn't sound like a fight with Squaler, more like do it that and that way. Next exercise, the last one, calf raises, just up, 1 to 2. Implemented many things of Beveridge's plan. Beveridge's plan, for example, said that 5 giant evils should be fought: idleness, ignorance, want, squalor, disease. And, for example, the NHS was informed 1945, was it? 1948. Did we mention that wrong? Or anywhere we didn't mention it in here? We're going to do maybe a single one to the NHS or Henry 91. But we don't have more than that sentence. But it would be enough. Maybe a very little info one. Who found, or who was the Minister of Health during the time when the NHS was established. Okay, that was the last exercise. Now the heel of the foot to the ground and the knee in front. And the NHS, 1948. Nationalization of many things. Okay, and Social Security from the cradle to the grave. But that is the welfare state. Here's nothing more to that. Here's nothing more to that. Other side. Again, heel to the ground and back. And the thing was financial help for unemployed, old age pension, free school meals. Safety improving on workplace, 1847 already other things. We're done with the standing lecture mistakes. Okay, let's look here, where was it? Dylan Thomas, Welsh poet and writer, who performed oftentimes his own works for the BBC, for example. 2 of his most famous or well-known works are Under Milkwood, a radio play, or Don't Go Gentle in the Wet Good Night, a poem written 4 years before, or 2. I could say 2, but it's more accurate with 4. For his dying father. And in his birthplace at Swansea in Wales, there are memorials for him. For example, a statue. What is statue? Is it a big one? Like I said, I think to have seen about the one for Boudica. Or is it just a statue? If it sounds a bit, if I say it like that. There are memorials for him, for example, a statue. Is it an imposant, a grand and splendor statue? Or is it just a statue? and the Dylan Thomas Center. So I'm going to start the second camera next to the other one. And now I try to say what we know about Dylan Thomas. I already forgot now. Let's just try it. Dylan Thomas. He was a Welsh poet and writer. And he often performed his own works, for example also for the BBC. Two of his best known works are the radio play Under Milkwood and a poem written for his dying father, Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. In Swansea, which is in Wales, there are memorials for him, for example a statue or the Dylan Thomas Centre. And that is according to the Life in the UK Test Handbook, page 54. Now I'm going to stop the camera. Let's start it again. We have time for one or two tries, depending on how far over we come to the welfare state. How do we start? The establishing of the welfare state in Britain. In 1847 there was a law introduced which made the maximum hours of work for women and children at 10 hours a day. Then, at the beginning of the 20th century, there were several further measures done. For example, more laws to regulate and ensure more safety in the workplace. There was then also old age pension introduced and work money for people who were unemployed. Free school meals also, and better support for mothers and children if they were separated from the husband. But the people wanted more. Okay, that doesn't make sense to say it at the point. Let's try it. I don't know. We have 3 minutes. That won't be enough. So let's prepare. I don't know really what is good. We have the inventions as the next time, so just keep stumbling a bit around here. So it will be. I'm going to actually explain chronologically. This is the best chronologically. 1847, that thing. And then the things of the 20th century. Social progress. Help for unemployed. But it's not written really in an order to say it. That's my problem. I also tried to do the other thing. Or was it actually here? To list it from the beginning. It was here. To make some order in it. Protection for mothers and their children, free school meals, financial help for the unemployed, old age pension. This progress was cut short. They say it like that. I wouldn't really express it like that. This development was then cut short a bit with the First World War breaking out in 1940 and 1918. In the 1920s, living conditions got better. There were improvements in public housing and new homes were built. That was the thing with the laws for. That was already 1900s beginning with the preventing of slums. Houses were built 1920s, but then the Great Depression in 1929. 1930s, car ownership, so some people had work, others not. Car ownership doubled. But other people also suffered mass unemployment in the 30s. Then the Second World War happened. And although written one, the country was exhausted and the people wanted change. Already during the Second World War, primary education was established. Now, let's save it at the beginning. Maybe I'm able to do that. To save it first before I save it to the Second World War end. It's complex to think that the other way around. Maybe I'm going to forget it. Then Second World War. So then Second World War. Then the Richard Austin Butler primary education, secondary education. Then exhausted economically, and the people wanted change. Labour government, Cleveland and Lee, implementing things proposed in the Barrett Report, NHS, nationalization, 5 things, ignorant, disease, squalor, want, idleness. NHS, nationalization, social security from the cradle to the grave. And that's it. Maybe we would have been able to do it, but now our time is actually up. I thank you very much, and until next time, where we will shoot that video again. So I thank you very much, and until next time.